The penultimate weekend of Premier League football has just concluded, with Nottingham Forest with a huge away win at West Ham and Arsenal beating Newcastle. This Champions League race is wide open and all eyes are on Manchester City on Tuesday at home versus Bournemouth. And Aston Villa sit here with a week to go, wondering, will they finish in that top five? Well, I'd love to know your thoughts on that one as well. How do you see it playing out with the end of the season? Do let me know in the comments. And before we go into the major stories today in today's video, please make sure you drop a like. Massive like target was hit last time on last video. So please, let's go for 100 likes again. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I love the comments. Still getting through some of the comments on the last video. Great insight on Emi Martinez and Ollie Watkins. But today, we're focusing on the top five battle. We're focusing on Ferran Torres, potentially a player in which Aston Villa put a huge bid in for. But it does seem this could be a bit of João Felix vibes. We've also got the thoughts of Diarra from France, Strasbourg. Will he come as a midfield option? It does look like Kaine Kesler-Hayden has a route of clubs lining up for him, but maybe a championship club will tout out the money. I'll get into all that stuff in this video, so big up to each and every single one of you. But first and foremost, let's carve our eyes on this Premier League table. As we conclude this penultimate weekend, as I said, Forest, with that win, are on 65 points, 1 point behind Aston Villa. Man City, as I said, play Bournemouth on Tuesday, and it is absolutely incredible. There'll be so many people sat here today going, what about ifs, buts, and whens with Villa? What about that draw that we could have held on at the Etihad but ended up losing? What about our goal difference where at the start of the season it's killed us, hence why we're so far behind Chelsea and Newcastle? What about those drop points at home, Ipswich, blah, blah, blah? Now, every team, Newcastle, Chelsea, City, Forest, they can all have their if, buts, and maybes. But now it just comes down to one shootout. We must go to Old Trafford and do something we don't do very well, win there. We don't have a good record there, but it's all different under Unai Emery, and it's certainly different with this Manchester United team as well. And then we have the big showdown of Nottingham Forest and Chelsea. Now, there is a scenario, as you can see, where actually a world in which if Bournemouth beat Man City on Tuesday, or even maybe snub a draw, there could be a world in which City and Chelsea don't qualify for the Champions League. Forest, Newcastle and Villa would. That would be absolutely massive, and that would completely dislodge the cartel, Sky, greedy, Super Six, whatever you want to call it, with having those two big sides miss out. But who do you think misses out? Do you believe in Villa? Or really, is it going to be something like goal difference that costs us, which will be absolutely sickening? It makes me sick now even thinking about it. Let's hope it doesn't go to that. But that is the Premier League table going into the final day. How do you feel about it? And do you think we're going to get the job over the line? Now, moving on to the next transfer story, it is simply about Ferran Torres. This is reported here by two Barcelona independent accounts, both cover the club exclusively. And they have said this: Aston Villa are offering 55 million for Ferran Torres, but the player wants to stay at Barcelona, so he would reflect the offer from Spain. Now, listen, basically, in a nutshell, what this is saying is that Villa are interested, want Ferran Torres. Ferran Torres doesn't want to leave, and he will want to reject us. Now, as I said at the start, this stinks of a João Felix situation, where Villa are going after a player of that caliber, that high-end quality. We absolutely are there twerking for him, saying, hey, what do you want? What money do you want? What wages do you want? And the players simply turn around and going, who are you? That's how I feel like João Felix has treated us. Now, if Ferran Torres is exactly the same, then that would be interesting. However, you also have to look at the bigger picture of Barcelona. With, of course, Marcus Rashford being linked to Barcelona, and with Ferran coming this way, is that scope that if Rashford comes, Torres comes to us? That's a permutation that maybe needs to be considered. But also, what role, what position would we be looking to play Ferran Torres? Is he someone who's going to come in at number 9, give Ollie Watkins competition, or is he going to be seen as a wide left forward, wide right forward, and play something different? Ultimately, again, when we talk about the tier and the strength of this source, it's not very high. It's not strong. You know, this is probably a third ranking tier. However, as I said, the one thing that does interest me is the fact that actually, if we were to go for a Barcelona player, especially in a forward position, does that make room for Marcus Rashford? And that's something that definitely needs to be considered when linked to Barca. And you never know. Football can be a merry-go-round. It can be a funny old situation, and we'd have to see how that one plays out. So, yeah, there's that first story for you. And I'd love to know your thoughts. Again, if you know Ferran Torres, if you follow Ferran Torres, your thoughts on him. Do you think he'd be a good fit at Aston Villa? Do you think this is the type of player that Unai Emery likes? Then do let me know on that one. Okay, next story then for you is here. Now, first and foremost, when I share this story, I want to be confirming on this one. A very unreliable source in Alan Nixon. Again, when I click on Alan Nixon's profile, I'll give you a quick bit of a background on Alan Nixon. 130k journalist. He was hired as a journalist for one of the major newspapers, but now has gone independent. So that's an interesting. He's gone down the independent route, but he has had many of false calls. He has also got one or two right as well. And that's the thing. The reason why he still gets a bit of credit is because he does make a few good shouts. But this is what he has put here. He has put that Aston Villa are actually looking at making a £25 million move for Strasbourg midfielder Habib Diarra. Now, those of you who are unaware of Habib Diarra, he's a Senegalese international, a footballer for Strasbourg. He's had 4 goals, 5 assists this season. And if you wanted to actually look at the sort of position in which he plays in, he is seen as a midfielder or winger. And I'm just going to get a little bit of a profile up for you here. He is seen as a midfield or winger. Again, a position I really didn't expect Aston Villa to be going into, those wide positions especially. But does that, again, once again, think about the situation in where someone like Jacob Ramsey could be on the move this season? Could it be a player like that we're looking to replace? So here is his profile. As you can see, as I said, he's had 4 goals, 5 assists this season in 30 appearances, played a lot of football, 6 yellow cards as well, and plays in majority of the starting 11 minutes-wise. However, as I said, when you're looking at it, they think he can play in the range of central midfield positions. And as I said, has had a spout on that left wing as well. So a very versatile midfielder. Now, if we're looking at him coming into the central midfielders, I've talked about the likes of Jacob Ramsey, etc. But what if it is a replacement for someone like Kamara or Yuri Tillemans? Every time we seem to be linked to a central midfielder, my head and mind goes to, is that a Boubacar Kamara replacement? And as you can see there, with Onana and the versatility that we have with Onana, and a strong, powerful player that he is, someone like Diarra is very similar to an Onana type build, but also he's versatile. He can play the holding, he can play the 10, he can play that box to box. Now, as I said at the start, this is Alan Nixon reporting this. Again, has some credible source, but have to consider, again, 25 million, that interest. We're going to be linked to midfielders left, right, and Wigan, especially if Kamara does not sign the team. And we all know that Kamara is waiting to see if Aston Villa secure Champions League football. Someone like Diarra may be that player that comes in if Kamara leaves if we don't get Champions League football. And if we do get Champions League football, I don't see us going for the Strasbourg player. In fact, I think we'd be snubbing our nose to that. So, yeah, absolutely. We'll have to wait on that. I think that depends on the competition that Aston Villa play in. And ultimately, we'll have to wait and see. Now, the final story of today is all about Kaine Kesler-Hayden. We did a stream on this a couple of days ago about the fact that Kaine Kesler-Hayden definitely can help with our PSR, and we'll be looking to get a good move for him. It has been reported today that Coventry City are leading the race to sign Kesler-Hayden in a deal reportedly worth 5 million plus add-ons. Now, Coventry City, of course, were very unlucky in the playoffs, losing to Sunderland with a stoppage time winner. And, of course, as well, Frank Lampard there and likes the young, youthful English products. Kesler-Hayden has definitely proved his worth in the Championship, obviously doing well at the likes of Plymouth, then going to Preston North End and winning all the trophies there. And basically, for me, he's a top-end Championship player. However, Aston Villa and my thoughts may believe that actually Kesler-Hayden could sign for a lower-end Premier League team. And if we can get Kesler-Hayden to a lower-end Premier League team with a bit more money, then we absolutely must fish that out. Now, the issue is when you look at the lower-end Premier League teams this season, you're looking at your West Hams, your Tottenhams, your Man United. Kesler-Hayden certainly doesn't fit the bill for any of those clubs. So we're one of the newly promoted teams, whether it's Leeds, whether it's Burnley or Sunderland versus Sheffield United, whether it's one of those teams who come up, could we flunk him there? We'll have to wait and see. Personally, for me, we'll go where I hope Villa go for the team that offer the most money. We snap the hands off and we go, thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Have a good day. So on that note, people, if you like this video, then make sure you smash the like. Let me know your thoughts on the stories that we've talked about today. I want to know who you think is getting the top 5, and more importantly, your thoughts on the transfer news that we've shared today. Get in the comment section. I'm out of here. Ta-da!